Imagine this scenario for a second. You are 21 years old, you're a nursing student, and ostensibly you have your entire life ahead of you. You are at a major university, dealing with the usual grind. Exams, clinical rotations, the intense pressure to succeed.
Right, the typical college pressure cooker.
Exactly. But then you do something completely unexpected. You pack your bags, you sit down at your computer, and you email your professors a lie about a family emergency, specifically a death in the family, just to buy yourself some time.
A very calculated move.
Yeah. Then you go to a store, you buy alcohol, a first aid kit, and a physical map of the mountains. You get in your car, you drive north, and then static.
It really sounds like the cold open to a psychological thriller, doesn't it? Like those first 5 minutes of a movie before the title card even drops.
It totally does.
Uh,
But in this case, the screen just goes black. You crash your car on a lonely road, a witness sees you alive and speaking, and by the time the police arrive, which is allegedly just 10 minutes later, you have vanished. Not into the woods, not into a house nearby, but seemingly into thin air.
And that is the stark, terrifying reality of the Maura Murray case. It is, without exaggeration, one of the most perplexing disappearances of the modern internet age.
Absolutely. And that's why we're doing this deep dive today. We're basing our discussion on a really detailed account from the source Telltales. It covers the timeline, the investigation, and all those lingering theories.
And I think it's important to state our mission right up front. What we are looking at today isn't just a missing person file. It is a fundamental study in ambiguity.
Ambiguity is the perfect word for it.
Our goal is to analyze the conflicting evidence from the source material and try to answer a really difficult question. Was this young woman running away from her life? Or was she running toward a tragedy she just didn't see coming?
I have to say, the tone of this whole case is just unsettling. The thing I keep getting stuck on is the window of time. How does a person completely disappear in the tiny window between a witness sighting and the police pulling up?
It defies logic.
It really does. So today, we're going to unpack those 10 minutes that changed everything. But to do that, I think we need to look at who Maura was.
Yeah, let's look at the profile the source gives us.
So Maura Murray was a nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. By all outward accounts, she was bright, athletic, and highly capable.
Right, she had that perfect student facade. But the source material shows that the facade was cracking. The timeline of her departure really highlights this. It wasn't random.
Okay, let's reconstruct that timeline for February 9th. According to Telltales, at 7 p.m., she's leaving the university and meeting up with friends. Sounds like a totally normal Monday evening.
On the surface, sure. But then at 8 p.m., she makes a stop at a convenience store. And the items she buys are just so specific and bizarre.
Yes, the shopping list. A map of the White Mountains, a first aid kit, and a significant amount of alcohol. Kahlua, vodka, and a box of wine.
Let's just pause on that accommodation for a second because it is incredibly telling. The alcohol suggests she wanted to cope or maybe numb herself. But the first aid kit.
Yeah, why do you buy a first aid kit for a supposed vacation?
Exactly. If you're going to a hotel or a friend's house, you don't grab a first aid kit. That specific purchase implies she knew she was heading into a situation where she had to be self-reliant, where she couldn't just run to a pharmacy if she got hurt.
And then there's the map. I think we really have to remind you, the listener, of the context here. This was early 2004.
Right, well, before we all had Google Maps on our phones.
Buying a physical regional map of the White Mountains means she knew the general direction she wanted to go north, but she didn't have a specific address in mind.
She was looking for a region, not a pinpointed destination. If she had a cabin booked, she would have printed out MapQuest directions.
Oh man, MapQuest, I remember those printouts.
Right. But the map means her options were open. And then, just 30 minutes later at 8:30 p.m., she sends that email to her professors.
The one where she claims she'll be away for a vacation due to family problems, a death in the family.
Which our source points out was a complete lie. There was no family emergency.
It's such a calculated move. By telling her professors and nursing supervisors that she had a family crisis, she basically bought herself a buffer zone.
She did. She ensured that no one at school would be looking for her or questioning her absence for at least a few days. It's actually a really smart tactic if your goal is to disconnect.
Right. If she had just skipped town, her dorm or her friends would have been calling around the very next morning when she didn't show up for clinicals. This lie gave her a week of silence.
It shows clear intent. But here's the contradiction the source brings up. She packed her belongings, left a note, and bought that map. That implies a plan. But was it a permanent disappearance or just a short break?
That's the million-dollar question. I mean, buying a regional map and letting people know you'll be gone for a specific amount of time suggests you plan to come back eventually.
Exactly. You don't usually lay the groundwork for a temporary absence if you never intend to return. But unfortunately, she never got the chance to clarify her intentions.
Because the next day, everything falls apart. Let's move to segment 2 of our deep dive, The Crash in the Void.
The pivot point of the whole case.
According to the source's timeline, it's February 10th, around 1 p.m. in the afternoon. Maura is driving on Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire.
And we really need to set the scene here. The source describes it as a secret place with dense forest. Route 112 isn't some busy interstate with gas stations and streetlights.
No, it's a 2-lane road winding through the White Mountain National Forest. In February, it's basically a tunnel of trees, snow, and ice. It's incredibly desolate.
And that isolation is crucial. So around 1 p.m., she crashes, the car spins out and hits a snowbank on a sharp turn.
And here is the detail that drives everyone absolutely crazy. A witness, a local guy who lived nearby, is driving past and actually sees her.
Right at 1:02 p.m.?
Yes, 102. She's alive, she's standing by the car. The witness stops and asks if she needs him to call the police.
And Maura declines. She tells him no, she has already called AAA.
Which, as Telltales explicitly notes, was another lie. There is zero cell service in that specific area. She couldn't call anyone even if she wanted to.
It was another lie to buy time. She clearly did not want law enforcement involved. But the witness goes home anyway. His house is just down the road, and he calls the police.
And the police respond fast. It's a small town. They arrive on the scene just about 10 minutes later.
But when that cruiser pulls up, the car is sitting there. The doors are locked. The airbags are deployed. There's a splash of red wine all over the interior. But Maura is gone.
That is the mystery gap. In that tiny window between someone speaking to her at 1:02 p.m. and the police arriving, she just vanished.
And remember the environment. The source emphasizes the dense woods. You have very few options in a 10-minute window in that terrain.
Right. You can't just blend into a crowd.
You either run deep into the freezing woods, pushing through heavy snow, or you get picked up by another vehicle. Did she flee into the trees to hide, or did someone just happen to drive by at the exact wrong moment?
It's terrifying to think about. But to understand which of those options is more likely, we have to look at her psychological state. The source material spends a lot of time on this.
Because she wasn't just on a carefree road trip. Her friends reported she was under immense stress.
Yeah, the exams, the heavy nursing syllabus. But there was a specific incident that the source brings up that feels like the real catalyst here.
The prior car accident.
Yes. Just a few weeks before this disappearance, she had crashed another car back in Massachusetts. Her dad's car, actually.
Which is a massive detail. Think about how fragile she must have felt. You're a young student, you're stressed about money in school, and you wreck your dad's car.
The guilt must have been overwhelming.
And then weeks later, you take off to clear your head and you immediately crash your own car in another state.
Right.
You have open containers of alcohol in the vehicle.
It's a compound fracture of stress.
Exactly. The source argues this likely spiked her anxiety to an absolute breaking point. It completely explains why she lied to the witness about calling AAA.
She was probably thinking, I cannot deal with the police again. I cannot risk a DUI right now. I just can't face this.
Panic overrides all logic. It tells you to run. But there is another layer to her stress that the source highlights, and honestly, it's the most chilling detail of all.
You're talking about the unknown number.
Yes.
This part really stuck with me. Before she even left on February 9th, Maura was receiving phone calls from an unidentifiable number.
And the caller was reportedly asking mysterious questions.
Mysterious questions.
Yeah.
It is so vague but so menacing. Do we know anything about what was actually said?
The source doesn't have the specifics of the questions, but it notes that family and friends firmly believe these calls deeply affected her mental state.
We introduced this dark external threat. Up to this point, we've been talking about internal pressure, school, the car crashes, the drinking, but this unknown caller changes everything.
It creates a black hole in the investigation. Was she running away from the person making those calls? Was she terrified?
Or, and this is even darker, was she driving north to actually meet the person on the other end of the line?
We just don't know. Without a clear reference for who that caller was, it completely fractures the idea of a simple mental health break.
So we have a terrified, stressed young woman who crashes her car, possibly running from a mysterious caller, and vanishes in 10 minutes. The source details the massive search effort that followed.
And they threw everything at this. On February 11th, 12th, and 17th, there was a massive coordinated effort.
Local law enforcement, search and rescue teams, citizen volunteers, they had helicopters up in the air looking for tracks.
They brought in scent dogs, they searched the rivers, the trails, and pushed deep into the forest.
But the result was zero. Nothing. No footprints leading away into the deep snow. No dropped items.
This source explains why this happened, citing the brutal obstacles of the White Mountains, the difficult terrain, the altitude, and the bad weather.
Right, it snowed heavily after the crash, which would have covered any tracks she did leave.
Plus, scent dogs are not foolproof. If she walked down the middle of the paved road where there was no snow, or if she got into a car, the scent trail just vanishes.
The source also mentions limited resources. They can only search a certain radius. If she got past that perimeter, they were looking in the wrong haystack entirely.
Despite all these official failures, the source makes a point to highlight the sheer determination of Maura's family.
Yeah, they were relentless. When law enforcement scaled back, the family organized private searches. They practically built a blueprint for using social media to keep a cold case alive.
They refused to let her be forgotten. But even with all that effort, 20 years later, all we really have are theories.
Let's break down those theories, because Telltales outlines three main possibilities. The first is Theory A, foul play.
This is the one a lot of online investigators lean heavily into.
It revolves entirely around that incredibly tight 10-minute window. The idea is that she was kidnapped or harmed by someone passing by.
It makes a grim sort of sense. She's stranded on a dark, freezing road. She's desperate not to talk to the police. A car pulls up, someone offers a ride, and she takes a risk she normally wouldn't.
And if she gets into a vehicle, that perfectly explains why there are no footprints in the snow and why the scent dogs lost her trail at the road.
Exactly. It accounts for the sudden, complete erasure of her physical presence.
Then there's Theory B, voluntary disappearance. The idea that she planned an escape to start a new life.
There is evidence to support this. The packed bags in her car, the email to her professors lying about a family emergency.
The stress of school and the previous accident could have been the final straw. She just wanted to walk away from being Maura Murray.
But the pushback on this theory is the reality of staying hidden. Pulling off a new identity for 2 decades without ever contacting your family or slipping up digitally is nearly impossible.
Which brings us to Theory C, and honestly, the one that feels the most tragic because it involves no malice, just terrible circumstances.
Yeah.
Perishing in the elements.
This theory suggests she ran into the dense woods specifically to avoid getting in trouble with the police.
She had alcohol in the car. She had just wrecked her second vehicle in a month. She sees the blue lights coming, or knows they are on the way, and she panics.
She ducks into the tree line to hide, thinking she'll just wait them out. But the terrain and the harsh winter weather turn a hiding spot into a fatal trap.
Hypothermia causes confusion. She wanders too far, gets lost in the dark, and succumbs to the cold.
And if we look at the expert synthesis from the source connecting all these dots, the presence of the alcohol and the prior crash are the primary drivers here.
She was absolutely terrified of the consequences.
Right. It prompted a rash, panic-driven decision to flee the immediate scene. And whether that flight led her into the woods to freeze or into the passenger seat of a predator's car, the initial spark was pure panic.
It's just devastating. So where does that leave us today? According to our deep dive into Telltales, the case remains completely unsolved.
Despite years of media attention, massive internet forums dedicated to her, and countless podcasts, there is no solid proof. Just strange local rumors and educated guesses.
It's a really profound example of the modern era of digital detective work.
It really is. Think about the paradox here. We know exactly what she bought at a convenience store at 8 p.m. We know the exact text of the email she sent.
We have receipts, timestamps, a digital trail of her final days.
We can track her movements with absolute precision right up until 1 or 2 p.m. on February 10th. And then we know absolutely zero about her ultimate fate.
It really makes you realize that no matter how connected we are, no matter how much digital exhaust we leave behind, the physical world is still vast and unforgiving.
If you step off the grid, either intentionally or by accident, you can still just disappear.
I want to leave you, the listener, with one final provocative thought derived from this source. We obsess over the crash site, the 10 minutes, the dense woods.
But there is an earlier puzzle piece.
Exactly. Maura's phone was shut off or died after the crash. But what if the key to this entire mystery isn't in the woods of New Hampshire at all?
You're talking about the unknown number.
Yes. If those mysterious calls were the actual catalyst for her flight, If they are the reason she bought a map and packed her bags, then the answer lies in the days leading up to her departure.
Whoever was calling her, asking those mysterious questions, knows something.
And they have remained entirely silent for over 20 years. So the real question that you have to ask yourself isn't just, where did Maura go? Is who was on the other end of that line?
A chilling thought to end on.
It really is. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the vanishing of Maura Murray.
Take care, everyone.